We're going to talk about SEO. My name is Bob Stewart with ActiveRain. Thank you for joining me. You can find me on Facebook or Twitter at ActiveBob, so facebook.com/ActiveBob, or if you want to connect with me or chat with me on Twitter, it's at ActiveBob. So we're going to talk about our blog and how we can get that thing to rank on the first page of the search engines. And when I talk about the search engines, I'm just going to use Google. Okay, some of these same concepts will apply to get us to rank in Bing and Yahoo and Ask and some of the multitude of search engines that are out there, but we're really talking about Google, and the reason is they're kind of the 800-pound gorilla, right? They are the search engine that sends the majority of the traffic out to the internet. So I'll use Google and search engine kind of interchangeably. One of the things that I always like to kind of preface this class with is I don't necessarily consider myself an SEO expert, okay? There are people out there who I believe are SEO experts, but that term gets kind of bandied about a little bit more than I believe it should. The things that I'm going to share with you today are based on about 8 years of experience of us getting content to rank in the real estate space, and so that's going to be the last 5 or 6 years with ActiveRain, and prior to that, we had 3 or 4 years where we had our own real estate brokerage and were able to get our website to rank very efficiently in the search engines as well. So this is going to be based on my experience, the things that I've seen and that we've seen as the community here at ActiveRain. So just kind of understand that that's where I'm coming from. I don't necessarily consider myself an SEO expert, but we've done a pretty good job of getting content to rank over the years. So what I share with you, it's going to be based on kind of that experience. Now, somebody that I do, well, actually, why are we here? What do we want out of this class? We want to write posts that are going to rank on the search engines and are going to get lots of clicks on them, right? Lots of people are going to end up viewing our posts. And the kind of snapshot that I've put together for you guys here is from one of our members. His name is Russ Ravery, and he is a member out of kind of the Livonia area of Michigan. And Russ has written well in excess of 1,000 posts, but I've got 10 of his blog posts here, and they come from kind of a variety of years, some of them much older, some of them a little bit newer. But what we see is if we write about the right things, and we're going to talk about how to write about them, but we're also going to talk about what we should be writing about. If we write about the correct things in our real estate blog, we have a chance to generate a lot of traffic. And as we go through here today, we're going to see that this traffic can in many ways be very, very targeted for people that are looking for specific kind of real estate related things in your market. And if you can look at the different posts that I'm showing there, we see a bunch of them are kind of subdivision related posts, or we see some condo complex posts in there, or even like where he talks about waterfront homes on Oxbow Lake. So these are the types of posts that we're going to kind of focus on today, but I want to kind of show you guys that this cumulative approach to creating these kind of posts can be, can have a substantial impact on the amount of traffic that you can drive to your blog and ultimately back to your website. So this is what we want, right? We want to kind of mirror what Russ has done, and it's been more than just these 10 posts that he's written, right? He's done this with hundreds of posts over, his 4 or 5 years of involvement here on ActiveRain, and so this is kind of what we're shooting for. Now, let's just kind of start with a high-level look at SEO, or search engine optimization, and this pyramid was put together by a guy who I would call a search engine expert. His name is Rand Fishkin with SEO Moz, and SEO Moz, much like ActiveRain is a community of real estate professionals, is a community of search engine optimization experts. These are people that all day long what they do is try to figure out how do we beat the Google algorithm, how do we get content to rank. And so Rand put this little pyramid together, and it basically just shows us kind of what SEO is built out of. And at the base of that, and this has been the same year after year after year, and you can probably expect this to be the same kind of base or foundation of SEO for years to come, and that's content quality and accessibility. So the majority of what we're going to talk about today is kind of how do we create quality content, but how do we make it accessible? What are some of the things we can do inside of that post to make sure that it's setting up properly for a search engine to get in there, index it, and then hopefully return our blog post on the first page. The next kind of pillar of SEO would be keyword research and targeting. And next week's class, kind of the second class in this bootcamp series, is going to focus exclusively on keywords. How do we select our keywords? Kind of what are the secrets to figuring out what keywords we want to write about? We'll talk about that a little bit today, and you'll probably have enough information about that when we conclude today's class to get started before next week for sure. The third kind of piece or foundation of SEO is going to be link building. In our third class, we talk quite a bit more about the concepts of building links and kind of what are some of the best practices inside of our blogs to make sure that the links that we have are helping our other, like our main IDX site, perform a little bit better in the search engines. And then kind of the peak or the top of this pyramid is social and sharing. And this is something that's kind of come about in the last year or two as Google's introduced Google Plus, and we have the ability to like +1 content, and people are sharing content on Twitter and sharing content in Facebook. These social signals are now starting to become a part of search engine optimization and how the search engines go about ranking content. But today we're really going to focus down there on that content quality and accessibility. So one of the concepts that I want everybody to understand as we get started here is called the long tail. And there's a couple hundred of you in the room here right now, and if I was in front of you guys, I would be able to say, how many of you guys have heard of the long tail? And at least half of you would probably raise your hand and have heard that term. But basically what the long tail says is in any given search demographic, there is a certain set of kind of generic phrases that people will search for, and those phrases get searched for in incredibly high volume. But any 8 or 10 of those phrases put together will only make up 30% of the search volume. On the long tail then, as we get out there, what begins to happen is as people are looking for something more specific, their search behavior will become more specific, and there are literally thousands and thousands of ways that somebody can search for something where any one of those searches isn't done very often, but the cumulative of that search traffic, the phrase that gets done 5 times a month or 8 times a month or 12 times a month, those come together to make up about 70% of the search volume. So the graphic I have here is for shoes, and so what we can see is a term like shoes or men's shoes, right? Those are some generic sorts of terms where there's an incredible amount of competition, and if you were paying, doing like Google pay-per-click, there would be a high cost associated with attempting to rank for those, and there's also a lower probability of conversion. Okay? As we get out on the long tail, and in this example it's red Nike men's running shoes, okay, there's less risk or cost or competition to rank for that term, and there's also a higher probability of conversion. Now as we apply this to real estate, in any of our given markets, there are going to be about 6 to 8 terms that make up those kind of generic 30% of the traffic sort of terms. They would be things in my market like Seattle real estate, homes for sale in Seattle, Seattle condo, Seattle houses for sale, right? These kind of generic sorts of terms that we would love to rank for, but there's a ton of competition out there. And what we generally see happening in our markets is companies like Trulia, Zillow, Realtor.com, Realestate.com, some of these big box websites that have millions of pages indexed. They've got tons of content from across the entire country, all the listings. They have millions of dollars to spend on optimizing their websites. Those are the types of sites that we see on that first page for those kind of general terms. But in real estate, there's this really awesome kind of phenomenon, and it's the concept that consumers actually search on the long tail. And so what that means is instead of just searching for homes for sale in Seattle, consumers will actually search for homes for sale in Wallingford, Seattle with a view of the lake, right? Or they'll search for these very specific sorts of things. And although any one of those searches might not get done very often, like homes for sale in Wallingford with a view of the lake, maybe that gets done like 5 times a month. Okay, but the cumulative of all of those, literally 99.99% of the other ways that somebody can search for real estate in our market make up 70% of the traffic, which is a large portion of us to potentially grab with our blog posts. So let's get in and talk about, in our blog posts, how are we going to go about getting found on page 1 of Google? Okay, so store away that long tail concept. We'll come back and look at that in a little bit as we look at kind of some live posts and some live searches that people have done in the last 30 days. So we're going to write posts that are 200 to 500 words. We're going to pick a keyword phrase for the title of our post. We're going to repeat the title at the start and the end of our content, and we're going to use our keyword phrase 3 to 5 times. Now we're going to come back and kind of go through each of those of 2, 3, and 4 individually, but let's start with 200 to 500 words. Okay, you can actually get content to rank in the search engines at about 100 words. Anything under 100 words, and you're going to have a pretty tough time getting it to rank in the search engines. But at 200 words, we can get content to rank, and even at 100. But here's the thing: we're always balancing our ability to get things to rank in the search engine with the fact that a real person is actually going to find that content. So if we can get something to rank in 100 words, is that the best use of the content? Well, maybe not, because what's going to happen is a real person is going to land there, and we're going to have a short amount of time to convince them that we're an expert on the subject they just queried. And I would actually challenge any one of you that's sitting in here listening to me today to write a piece of content that in 100 words demonstrates that you're an expert on some particular subject. So if I was writing about a particular condo complex in my market, right, it would be really challenging in 100 words to convince a real person that I'm an expert. Now, we could potentially convince the search engine that I'm a good result to show on the first page if somebody queried that condo complex, but a real person's going to end up on my blog, and so somewhere between 200 and 500 words, we can generally get enough good information in there that we can convince both the search engine and that real person that lands there that we're an expert. So the second thing that we want to consider is picking a keyword phrase for our title. And next week, we're going to go through really in-depth this concept of picking a keyword phrase. But essentially, whatever phrase we're wanting to rank for, that's going to be what we use as the title of our blog post. So we need to get in kind of the seat of the consumer and think to ourselves, is what I'm about to use for the title of my blog post something that somebody would actually search for? Okay? Now in doing that, we're only going to target one keyword phrase per blog, or I have page on there because a lot of these concepts would apply to like pages you would build out on your website as well, but we're talking about blog posts. So we're going to target one keyword phrase per blog post. Okay? We're not going to try to target homes for sale in Wallingford and Ravenna and Capitol Hill and Ballard, Seattle, right? We're just going to target one keyword phrase per blog post. Now, we may consider different variations of a keyword phrase. So if I was doing homes for sale in Wallingford, Seattle with a view, right? And that was my blog post that I wrote today. It could be that I come back 6 months from now and I write another post about view homes for sale in Wallingford, Seattle. That differentiation in the way I use the keywords can have a little bit of an impact on the search engine. But when we get out on the long tail, the order of our keywords is not super important. Okay, it's more important that we just focus on one keyword phrase, and then we're going to reinforce it with some of the stuff we'll talk about here in a minute. Now, we're almost always going to have a geography in our keyword phrase, and I realize that almost and then having always in caps on the slide there is kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of funny, but there's times when you're not necessarily going to be writing for the search engine. Okay, there may be times when you're writing a blog post geared towards your peers, right? You're writing it to get feedback from other folks on ActiveRain, or there may be a time when you're writing a blog post to send out to like a client or to send out in a mailer or an email blast that you're doing. In those cases, we don't necessarily have to get that geography in there, but what we find is in search, when somebody is going online to search, and especially in the real estate vertical, there's normally going to be some component of geography and then some component of subject matter for the keyword that they use when they query the search engine. Okay, so geography plus subject. Think about it in a very general sense. Homes for sale in Seattle. What is my subject matter? Homes for sale. What is my geography? In Seattle. Okay? So we'll really dive into this next week, but really quickly, when you're thinking about geography and subject, the more precise your geography, the less precise your subject matter needs to be. On the flip side of that, the more precise your subject matter is, the less precise you can be with your geography. And here's what I mean by that. Here's some examples of a more specific subject matter that we might use for a keyword phrase for the title of our blog post. Okay, homes for sale in Seattle under $300,000. So the subject matter here is homes for sale under $300,000, right? In that case, I can be pretty broad with my geography, Seattle, right? Homes for sale in Seattle with a mother-in-law suite. Again, subject matter, homes for sale with a mother-in-law suite in Seattle, this more broad geography. Now, if I want to get more specific with my geography, and this is mainly what we're going to talk about today as I show you some of the live pieces of content, we can do that by either focusing on like a particular condo complex or a particular subdivision inside of our market. So the Bravern condos for sale, Seattle, right? Homes for sale in Hunters Ridge, Saline, where Hunters Ridge is the name of the subdivision in the city of Saline. Homes for sale in Seattle, 98109, right? Homes for sale in Seattle near Boeing, right? Homes for sale in Redmond near Microsoft. Right? That's where we're getting kind of real specific with our geography, which allows us to have kind of this general subject matter, homes for sale, condos for sale. Okay, so once we've picked a keyword phrase for the title of our blog post, we are then going to repeat that title or that keyword phrase at the start and at the end of our post. And what you see here on my screen is what a Google search result looks like. Okay, the portion in blue that somebody can click on, that comes from the page title of a blog post. And I want to show you, when you create a blog post on ActiveRain, you give it a title. So in this case, I've called it Short Sale Properties in Wallingford, Seattle. What happens is whatever I put in my title line right here becomes the page title for this page. And it's the very first thing that the search engine looks at when they index our content is the page title. What is this page going to be about? So that's why it's really, really super important that I have a good, strong keyword for my title. Okay? This first 140 characters of the actual body of the content in an ActiveRain blog post becomes your meta description. And what a meta description is it's some indicators to the search engine of, again, what's on this page. But as we look at a search result, the portion in black right here, that comes from the meta description. So we're essentially telling the search engines, again, what is this about? Which is why we want to make sure we get our title, or that keyword phrase we used in our title, somewhere in there at the start of our post. And it's generally going to be, you could have it as part of a sentence. You will see, like I did in this example here, where I just restated it at the top of the post. Okay? Now, the reason I have you put it at the end is because I had a really, really good, I can't remember if it was 7th or 8th grade. If I thought about it, I probably could, English teacher. And what my English teacher taught me when we were learning how to write 5-paragraph essays is, in the first paragraph, you tell them what you're going to tell them about. Then you spend 3 paragraphs telling them about it. And then in the 5th paragraph, you tell them what you just told them about. It's a similar concept here, right? At the start, we're going to repeat that keyword phrase. Then we're going to talk about it. And then at the end, we're going to reinforce that keyword phrase again. Okay? The primary reason I do this is because if you can get your keyword phrase, that exact match keyword phrase, right? In my case, it would have been short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle. If I can get that exact keyword phrase into the first sentence of my post, and then I can get it into the last sentence, I really only need to find one. Let's go big again. I really only need to find 1 to 3 more times to get it in there, because ultimately in the entire body of the content, I want to use that exact keyword phrase 3 to 5 times. So I get it in there in the first sentence, I get it in there in the last sentence, I now have it in there 2 times, so I need to find 1 to 3 more places to get it into the content. Okay? It needs to be exactly as it is in the page title. So in my example, my My page title, or the keyword phrase I decided to use, was short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle. I got it in there once in the beginning, right? Short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle. Somewhere down here, hopefully at the end, I got it in there. I didn't, but I would have wanted to have it in here somewhere in this last sentence. Okay, then I just need to find, a couple of other times to get it into the body of this post, so that we get to 3 to 5 usages of that keyword phrase. Now we don't, if 3 to 5 is good, that means 10 is better, right? Well, no. You don't want to inundate the post with over usages of your keyword phrase, right? The search engines will look at that as, as spam, essentially, like you're trying to manipulate them in some way. And I guess, using it 3 to 5 times, we are trying to manipulate them, but we're really just reinforcing to them, this is what this is about. Now, does the body have similar content? And one of the things about blog posts, and one of the reasons that they rank so well in the search engines, is if you actually sit down and write something, like if I was writing a post about short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle, there's a really good chance that the rest of the body of content is going to be similar to my keyword phrase, right? I'm going to talk about Wallingford. I'm going to talk about, the issues with short sales. Like there's going to be words and phrases in that content that relate to my keyword phrase. Okay, so as long as we're actually sitting down and writing this content out, it's almost impossible to not have similar content, right? If we were writing about a waterfront condo for sale in Seattle, right, what kinds of other words would they expect to see in there? Views of the lake and, parking and, common areas and homeowners associations and all of these words and phrases that the search engine say, okay, this relates to a piece of content about a waterfront property in downtown Seattle. Now, when we're all done, when we've written the entire body of the post out, we want to make sure that that keyword phrase, the one that we used in our title, the one that we repeated 3 to 5 times in the body of our post, ends up becoming the most common phrase on the page. And if you end up using it 5 times, there's a pretty darn good chance that it is going to be the most common phrase on the page. But you just want to make sure you didn't use, you didn't inadvertently use some other word or some other phrase more often than your keyword phrase. Okay, we're just trying to get all these signals lined up for the search engine so that as they come in and index our content, they can see that it's a good, valid piece of content and it all kind of relates to what we stated it was going to be about, which is that keyword phrase that we picked for the title. Oops, I guess I didn't need to go big screen there on you. So let's go live. Let's go in here and look at some searches that have been done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you in the back end of ActiveRain's Google Analytics. Okay, so this is a look at the last about 30 days of search behavior that's led somebody to ActiveRain. And the first thing we're going to look at is searches that include the word condo, because as you leave today, there's 2 things that I want you to be thinking about writing about. I want you to be thinking about writing about specific condo complexes or condo buildings in your market, and I want you to be thinking about writing about subdivisions, and we'll tackle subdivisions in a second here. But what I want to show you is that people actually search for specific condo buildings. And let's use this one here as an example. So the keyword phrase that people are searching for is Sunwood Condos, Shelton CT, or Shelton, Connecticut. Okay, we see that search was done 12 times in the last 30 days, of which 75% of those were new visitors. So about 9, or actually if my math is right, it's exactly 9. 9 of those 12 people were a brand new visitor to our website and came across this particular post. Now what I'm going to do is I go out here and actually do the search. I'm going to pull up Safari. So you're looking at our analytics in Firefox. The reason I come out to Safari when I actually start to do the search is because I always keep a clean browser when I want to look at search engine results. On my Firefox browser, I'm logged into Google. I very rarely clear my cache or my cookies. So Google has a bunch of information about who I am, what I look for, what websites I like, and they're potentially going to manipulate the search results that they show me and not give me a clear picture of what anyone else out there might see who wasn't me. So what I do is when I'm doing search, when I'm looking to see where do I rank or something like that, I always keep my browser private. So for Safari, I just went up here and said private browsing. And then before I ever do anything of this nature, I will reset my browser. So I'll come in here and say, look, I want to reset Safari. I want to clear all my history, all my cache, all my cookies, all that stuff that a search engine could look at to try to serve results up to me, different from how they would serve them up to someone else. So Sunwood condos, Shelton CT, okay, that's going to be the keyword phrase that we saw people searching for. We're going to see Barbara's blog post coming up here in the first position. So as we get over and we look at her post, let's look at some of the things that she did. So she picked a keyword phrase for the title, Sunwood condos in Shelton CT, or Sunwood condominiums. But the search engine was smart enough because they will highlight the words in here that match our query. They know that condos and condominiums means the same thing, right? They've highlighted condominiums even though condos was our query. So let's get down in here, right? She restates her keyword phrase. Fantastic. As we get down in here a little bit, Sunwood condominiums in Shelton. Now she doesn't get CT in there, so it's not an exact match, but it's darn close. So there's her second usage of it. Right, and as we get down here a little bit more, Sunwood condominiums for sale or rent today, Sunwood condominiums, Shelton CT. We see her using her keyword phrase again for that third time, and then she may have gotten it in here, that fourth and fifth time. In terms of what kind of content is she writing, what is she actually writing about the Sunwood condominiums? What you will learn, and as you dive in and start to do this and you start to repeat the process, you'll probably come up with some kind of a formula. And if we were to look at, Barbara's done more than one of these posts, and I'll show you here in a second, but she has a formula for these posts. So her first paragraph is kind of a flowery description, right? It's nestled in a private wooded area, right? Then her second paragraph is, when was it built? How many townhomes are in here? Right? Then she's got kind of a call to action. Hey, if you want to find condos that are for sale or rent today, click here. And we'll talk a lot about that in week 3. Then she kind of gives you, this is what the units are like, right? This is what kind of the complex amenities are offered, right? This is what's nearby. Once she has that formula, then it becomes really easy for her to produce that next post about the next condo complex, Aspetuck Village, or whatever it happens to be for her. Let's come in and look at her traffic numbers. So this is traffic on her ActiveRain blog, and you could all get to your traffic numbers by clicking on the My Home link up here in the top right, and then traffic right over here on the left underneath your photo. And what we see is this blog post, and now it's 2.5 years old. Right? It's 30 months old about, but if we kind of break this down, it's 30 months old. On average, it's gotten about 100 clicks a month. And the clicks column is really the column that you're paying attention to, because what this means is that this particular URL was loaded in somebody's browser. So there's a pretty darn good chance they got a chance to at least absorb the content initially. Right? So 2,900 clicks, right, over the course of 30 months, about 100 clicks a month. Now, if she had just stopped there, she just said, I'm just going to write about one thing, she would not have gotten kind of that cumulative effect of the long tail. And so what we see, and if we looked at other pages here, we'd see a bunch of posts of this nature, but here's another one, the Aspetuck Village condominiums, right? This one's even more popular. It's gotten 4,400 clicks. So, but we saw, look, only 12 people found it. There's only 12 clicks for this particular keyword phrase. Well, as we come in and look a little bit deeper at the analytics, what we see is there's a bunch of different ways that somebody could have found this post. It wasn't just based on Sunwood condos, Shelton CT, right? Somebody searched Sunwood condos, Shelton CT for sale. In fact, 2 people did, right? Sunwood condos for sale, Shelton, CT, Sunwood condos, Shelton. All these kind of different, just minor variations on the keyword phrase they used that all led them back to Barbara's post. Okay? Here's another example of this in action. The Turtle Bay condos, Branford, Connecticut. So let's get in here and look at Turtle Bay. So here it is, Turtle Bay, right? 6 visitors, 83% are new, so 5 of those 6 were new. Turtle Bay condos, Brantford CT. We see Donna showing up here in the 2nd position. Notice what's different about Donna's result than any of the other results here. Her face is showing up there. This is a function of what's called Google authorship. And you have an ability, and if Carrie would find that link, I'm sorry, I didn't prepare Carrie for this. If Carrie, you'll find that there's a link that Carrie's going to send you guys out in the chat portion of the GoToWebinar that will show you how to set up Google authorship on your ActiveRain blog. This image showing up here is proving to get higher click-through rates. So Donna's getting click-throughs, you know, that may have gone to Weichert because people are able to identify that there's a real person behind this piece of content. Okay, so we get in here, we see her blog post. Right now, she maybe confuses the search engine just a little bit because she does Brantford condos for sale, Turtle Bay condos in Brantford CT, so she's kind of targeted more than one keyword phrase. There's the potential that had she just targeted like Turtle Bay condos in Brantford CT or Turtle Bay condos for sale in Brantford CT, that she might have been the first result showing up on this page. And that could have been the difference between, instead of 6 clicks, she could have got 15. Right? So these little things that we can do in our posts can have a big difference. Right? The difference between position 4 and 3 is significant. Between 3 and 2 is significant. Between position 2 and 1 is significant. Now, we can really get a good look on her stats page at the cumulative effect of these kinds of posts. So we see Brantford Bay, we see Turtle Bay condos here, 4,800 clicks. As we come through, we see Sylvan Point condos, 3,300 clicks. We see the East Haven condos, 3,100 clicks. We see Harbor Village condos, 4,300 clicks. Okay? The cumulative amount of traffic that she's driven to her blog by writing about these very specific places in her market is substantial. I mean, it's very substantial. You know, it starts to add up to, like we saw earlier with Russ, thousands and thousands and thousands of clicks coming back over a period of time to these blog posts. One of the things that you'll learn, we're going to send you out in a follow-up to this class, a video, and in that video I talk about how to construct a post of this nature. Okay? Today I've kind of given you the, you know, pick a keyword phrase, use that keyword phrase 3 to 5 times, repeat it at the start and the end, kind of the mechanics of it. But in terms of laying the post out, of what you want to write about, we've got a video that we're going to send out to you guys that will give you kind of the specs on how to do that. But we saw it here in Barbara's post, right? We're going to have kind of a flowery introduction. Then we're going to have a link for them to find homes for sale in that area. Then we're going to talk about the units, right? Then we're going to talk about the amenities. Then we're going to talk about what's nearby, okay? In that video, I really break down kind of from A to Z, how do you create one of these posts. So if you have condo complex in your area, these are a great source of traffic. They're a great source of very targeted search behavior. The next kind of suggestion I'm going to make to you about things to write about would be subdivisions. And again, this is the last 30 days. It's not quite as impressive as the condo, kind of the overall look at condos in terms of how many people are visiting. But the thing with the subdivisions, they don't always use the word subdivision in their search. They might search homes for sale in Rodeo Palms, Manville, Texas, right? In this case, you know, we had 4, of which 75% were new, so 3 of those 4 people were new. If we come over here, we're going to see a bunch of other ways that they use the phrase Rodeo Palms and actually were searching for homes, right? House for sale in Rodeo Palms, homes for sale in Rodeo Palms, foreclosed homes in Rodeo Palms, right? Rodeo Palms, lots available. Like, these are all visitors that I absolutely want on my blog, right? I mean, yes, I would love to rank for homes for sale in Manville, Texas, but who's there? Trulia, Zillow, Realtor.com. Right? And the person that does a search of homes for sale in Manville, are they closer or further from buying something than the guy that types in Rodeo Palms, homes for sale. Homes for sale in Rodeo Palms. Rodeo Palms, lots available. Rodeo Palms, homes for, I mean, the person doing these very specific long tail sorts of searches is much closer to actually buying. I hate to pick on Maggie here. I'm going to pick on her a little bit. And Chris, who kind of runs things behind the scenes for us, would be upset with me because I didn't let Maggie know, but I just found this morning. She kind of inadvertently is ranking for Rodeo Palms homes for sale or Rodeo Palms subdivision. Let's do this search real quick so that I can show you where she's ranking. And it's not probably where we'd want to be ranking if we did all the right things, right? In fact, as I go down here, she's actually at the bottom of this first page. Now, if they had gotten a little bit more specific, like maybe Rodeo Palms homes for sale or something, she may have moved a little bit. Oh, there we go. Rodeo Palms homes for sale, Manville, Texas, something like that, right? We saw a similar search to that. It was maybe done once. Again, she's down here a little bit. She might not even be on the first page for that search. She's not. So let's look at her post. Is there some things that we could have done? Well, first off, in her keyword phrase in the title, she really is kind of out there, right? She's got 3 signal drives. She's got a price point in there. She's also writing about one particular listing. Taking the approach that we saw the other ladies using, where they're writing kind of general information, timeless sorts of posts, and then giving me a chance to actually find, like Barbara does here. Right? If I want to find the stuff that's for sale today, there's a real easy link for me to pass through. When we write in this fashion, right, and we'll notice, right, we don't have the keyword phrase repeated in here. Well, it's in there, but it's, you know, it's not starting it out. Is it repeated anywhere else? Rodeo Palms, as we look through here, we see it every once in a while, but there's not a real good structure. Like she's not repeating the exact keyword phrase in here. Okay. She got Rodeo Palms in there a few times, and that's probably why she appears for Rodeo Palms subdivision. But there's some things she could do to tighten this up to get herself ranking a little bit higher. All right, now she's still getting traffic here. And as we look down here somewhere is Rodeo Palms. There it is. She's got 1,300 clicks on this thing. But what's happening is those clicks from today are looking at a piece of property that was for sale 2 years ago. So that's why we look at kind of this timeless application of it and then give them a chance to get back to our website and find the homes that are for sale today. All right, so there's a look at a couple of things. In next week's class, we'll really dive into keywords in a lot more depth, but as you leave this class today, I want you to be thinking in terms of condo complexes or subdivisions in your marketplace that you could begin to write about. So let's talk about kind of some commonly missed SEO opportunities or some additional opportunities for us to do things on the page that send the search engines good signals so that they want to rank our content. And the first one is going to be our photo metadata. So essentially, all we're talking about is the description and the title that you give an image when you place an image in your blog post. And the slide right now is showing you kind of what it looks like when you place an image on ActiveRain. You have an image description field and a title field. The image description is what the search engines will identify that picture as being of. So if somebody was to do a Google image search, that picture would get returned based on the image description you gave it. The title becomes a part of the keywords that appear on the page to a search engine. Let me give you an example of that. For the title here, when I run my cursor over this, see what pops up there, Wallingford Craftsman Home. That's the title. Now, if I had only gotten my keyword phrase onto the body of this post, let's say 3 times, and I wanted to get it in there that 4th or maybe that 5th time, what I can do is in the title line of my image, I can use my keyword phrase. But if I had my keyword phrase in there 5 times already, I wouldn't want to place it a 6th time in the title line of that image. right? Now I'm starting to kind of oversaturate my post with my keyword phrase, right? And if I had 3 images in here, I definitely wouldn't want to have it in there, 3 more times in addition to the 5 times that I have it in the actual text we can see, because when the search engine indexes this, they're going to index that title line as being a part of the content on the page. The image description just gets served up to them for image searches that are done on Google, but the title line becomes a part of the keyword of the phrase. But we want to make sure that we get something in there for the image and the description so that we let the search engine know, hey, there's an image on this page that relates to the keyword phrase that I used for the title of my post. The next commonly missed search engine optimization opportunity, an anchor text link using your keyword phrase. In the 3rd week of this series, we'll really dive into this, kind of where this should link to. But essentially what this means is I want to create a link that uses the words from my keyword phrase. Okay, so in this example you see on the page, what do you think the title of my blog post would have been? Loft Condos in Belltown, Seattle, right? That was the title. So somewhere in the body of my post, I want to get a link in there that says, that uses the anchor text that's my keyword phrase. So my keyword phrase, or the title of my post was Loft Condos in Belltown, Seattle. I want to have a link that uses those same words. Again, we'll really dive into this in the links class, or the calls to action class in the 3rd week, but I want it to be above the fold, right? I want it to be the first link that appears in my content. So in this case, here's my link, right? Click here if you want to find currently available short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle. Right? I'm sending them back to a page on my site where they can find the current listings. Okay? This is just telling the search engine, just reinforcing the search engine that, look, not only will the page that I'm serving up to you have good information about short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle, but I'm willing to send the consumer, that actual live person that you send to me, to another page that has good information about short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle. So a anchor text link using our keyword phrase. Okay? The next one is going to be another link to a high authority site on the subject or the geography that we're talking about, that we're blogging about. So, in my example here of short sale properties in Wallingford, Seattle, what I did is my second link in the post became a link to something else the search engine finds relevant for some component of my subject matter, or my keyword phrase, right? So my subject matter is short sale properties. The geographical component is Wallingford, Seattle. So I link to something else on the internet that Google finds important for Wallingford. Now, how would I know that? Well, here's what I did. I just went out here and said, Google, tell me what you think is important for Wallingford, Seattle. My browser is getting a little bit slow, so bear with me. I just searched for Wallingford, Seattle. Now, I don't want to link to some other agent's, some other real estate site or something, but I can generally find a site or a source that's going to be good information for what I'm talking about. Wow, that's slow. You can just trust me that Google actually pulls up a result for that Wallinghood blog. There it is, wallyhood.org, right? It's just a blog for Wallingford. So I'm going to link to that in my blog post. Again, this is telling the search engine, look, my piece of content is relevant to this subject matter and this geography, but I'm willing to send, any traffic that you send me. I'm okay sharing other great resources for this subject matter, and obviously Google thinks that this blog that I linked to is a good resource for Wallingford. Okay, so I'm going to add another link to a high authority site on either the subject or the geography that I'm speaking about. And then this last kind of commonly missed search engine optimization opportunity is additional media-rich content and layout. And you need to make sure that your content is professional looking, okay? When somebody lands on your content, you have a very short amount of time to convince them that they want to actually dive in and consume it. So the more professional we can get our content looking, the better off we're going to be. And then if we can add some additional media-rich content, and what I mean by that is if you have any kind of YouTube videos, if you're doing video at all, or maybe Google Maps that you can add in, okay? What these things will do is they may potentially serve to keep a real live visitor on your page for a longer duration. So if somebody was really interested in the Sunwood condos, it's, you know, it's not a stretch to think that they might come in here and watch this video, right? The longer they stay on the page, the better the signal is that we're sending back to the search engines, right? The signal being, person did a query, Sunwood Condo, Shelton CT. They landed on the piece of content that Google served to them, and they spent a while on this piece of content, right? They spent a minute and a half, or they spent 3 minutes, or they watched the whole video and they ended up spending 5 minutes on this page. That's a signal that result the search engine gave them was valuable to them. So we want to make sure, if possible, and now don't worry about this, right? This would never be a reason why you wouldn't blog about a condo complex or a subdivision in your market. But if you have these resources available, get them into your posts. I believe Carrie's going to send you out a link that talks about how to create custom Google Maps that you can embed. It's a video tutorial. It's really easy. If you're just getting started with us, these are things that you will learn over time, right? The first thing we want to do is just get out there. Now what, right? We're going to get a blog. These concepts apply on WordPress. They apply on Blogger, right? They definitely apply on ActiveRain. There's some other things that you would need to be aware of in WordPress and Blogger. For instance, on ActiveRain, when you title your blog post, it automatically becomes the page title. That's not like a default setting on WordPress. That would be a plugin that you would need to set up, right? But on ActiveRain, these things are they're set up for you, right? Create a list of 10 long-tail keyword phrases. Create a list of 2 for all I care, right? Just create something that you could see yourself writing about. So the real easy options at this point are a subdivision and a condo complex, because we talked so much about those today. Next week, we're really going to dive into just a myriad of other things that you can also be writing about. Write one piece of content using what we learned. You just spent an hour or 50 minutes at this point with me, right? It's never going to be fresher in your head than it is right now. So find some time somewhere in the next day or 2, or even today, to sit down and write a piece of content using what we learned today. Learn if your website is equipped to generate leads. We're going to talk way more about that in week 3. You can use this checklist every time you write a post, okay? In the email that we send out as a follow-up to you guys, you'll have a link to get this checklist. It's essentially just the things we talked about today. Pick a keyword phrase, right? Make sure your keyword phrase is in the first 160 characters of the body. Use it 3 to 5 times. Make sure you have other similar phrases, right? Make sure your keyword phrase is the most common on the page. Include an H1 and H2 header tags. And if we look at Barbara's piece of content, this is actually an H1 header tag here. Carrie right now is going to give you another link. And I apologize, we can't go through all of these things. We'd be here for 2 or 3 hours. She's going to give you another link that shows you how to include an H1 and an H2 header tag in your posts. Make sure you have proper image description and title for any images that you add, right? Make sure you have an anchor text link including your keyword phrase. And then don't forget to share your content on social media. And we didn't talk about that a lot today, but anytime you write a post on ActiveRain, you have a chance to share it across your social networks. And you might not always want to share everything that you do on every social network, but like Google Plus One, for instance, like that would be a place that I would be sharing my content publicly because Google owns it. All right, so we have if you're not a Rainmaker, so the things that we talked about today are mainly designed for our Rainmaker members. And essentially, if you have a free membership on ActiveRain, the difference between that and a Rainmaker membership is your content does not get indexed by the search engines unless you're a Rainmaker. So we have a promo. I'll be quite honest, I don't even know what this promo is. And so maybe in the email that goes out, Michelle will let you know what it is. I believe it's 2 months, the first 2 months for $1 each month. something like that. That's my bad. Oops. I'm not really a salesperson, but I wanted to, anybody that's not a Rainmaker on here, give you a chance to try this out for the first 2 months for $1, and and start to actually put this stuff into practice. Start to see the search results. Start to see yourself showing up on the first page. I believe that is, that's the process, right? We start, we learn a little bit what you've done here today, we put it into practice, right? We see if that stuff actually ranks in the search engine, and then we come back and we refine and we hone it a little bit. Next week's class, we're going to talk about keyword phrases. We're going to talk about, how do I figure out what the heck I want to write about? Now, I gave you a couple of good examples, right? Condo complexes and subdivisions, but there's a ton of different stuff that we could be writing about.